With the rising popularity of YouTube Let's Plays and Twitch streaming, horror games have enjoyed a bit of a resurgence. This resurgence is oddly enough not due to people's desire to play these games themselves, but rather the voyeuristic impulse to watch others play them on the internet. I digress. Whatever the reason, developers are back to delivering scares and suspense to those who have the steely nerves required to complete these games. Daylight attempts to elbow its way to the front of the crowd, nudging past fan favorites like Slender the 8 Pages, Outlast, and Amnesia the Dark Descent. With its procedurally generated mazes and visuals bolstered by Epic's Unreal 4 engine, Daylight has the goods to garner the interest of fans, but does it deliver the tension and the scares of its contemporaries? Daylight wastes no time with any kind of lead-in or build-up. Immediately, you take control of Sarah, a girl stranded in a dilapidated hospital who, well, you aren't really told anything about Sarah. You don't see her face, you aren't clued into her age or her background, and why she's in the middle of this hospital is a mystery. The most intriguing aspect of Sarah is the bizarre maze-like network of lines that appear on her arm, with only her cell phone and a mysterious male voice to guide her.
Sarah, no matter where you go, there you are.
Sarah must wander around in search of documents called remnants, and collecting all of the documents in an area allows her to obtain a sigil, which unlocks a magically sealed door to the next area. If this sounds vaguely familiar, that's because it's pretty much the same setup as the Slender games. Along the way, pictures fall off walls unexpectedly, drawers from filing cabinets shoot across the room, and wheelchairs and IV drip racks will squeak across the floor in this veritable digital funhouse. Nestled between each area that hosts a remnant hunt are areas that require some light puzzle solving and collecting more documents that attempt to build a narrative. The puzzles are inconsequential, requiring some switch flipping and crate pushing. Sarah can also use glow sticks to illuminate objects of interest, since apparently the magical elements she encounters respond to chemiluminescence. Lockers, supply boxes, and crates can all be opened for flares, glow sticks, and documents. The problem is that all of this can be made frustrating as a result of clunky controls. Opening a locker can involve an awkward tango while trying to prompt the contextual command to pop up and grant Sarah access to its contents. Pushable crates can only be moved from one side, so players must circle them like a shark in order to find the side they can interact with. Sarah also moves at a ponderous pace by default, meaning that the patience of a Zen master is required to navigate the environment. While she can sprint, the exaggerated head bob can make some players sick, and is at the very least disorienting, making exploration difficult. The witches that want to tear Sarah limb from limb appear at random, often behind players, and can be warded off with flares. Flares and glow sticks are not exactly in short supply, but the real challenge is making it to the magically sealed doors with a sigil in hand, since your trusty flares cannot be used. It can get frustrating when you find yourself cornered by a spawning witch with no recourse. While players can get the same type of gameplay from several other games on the market, one would at least expect the narrative to differentiate Daylight from other titles. This would be a mistake, however, since Daylight is on a strict diet of cliches and hackery. By dropping its protagonist into a scenario without any introduction, it drives a large wedge between players and the characters involved. Where the protagonists of other horror games reflect on their growing unease or decaying sanity, Sarah does nothing to reflect on her predicament aside from calling out into the dark, announcing that she is aware of some unseen presence.
I know there's somebody here.
All of this culminates in an inane plot twist that has little consequence given the abysmal character development. There is nothing for players to be invested in, and the mysteries surrounding the hospital, its patients, and Sarah merely come off as set dressing. Given that Daylight is running on the shiny new Unreal 4 engine, one would at least expect it to look great, but the procedural level generation betrays this expectation by requiring environments to be modular, making it reminiscent of being trapped in one of Skyrim's dungeons. One room offers few details to distinguish itself from another, and were it not for the fact that there's an ever-present map on Sarah's phone, getting lost would be a frequent occurrence. Props are generic, and as a result, many areas don't feel like they have a purpose, and the decaying buildings that players have to navigate look sparse, with even simple details like windows being few and far between. Lighting is also rather generic as a result of this design, so don't expect to see any of the extraordinary expressionist surroundings offered by a game like Outlast. Continuing the trend of treading well-worn ground, Daylight also suffers from its choice of environments by featuring horror game staples like a hospital, prison, sewers, and a forest. Ultimately, Daylight lacks the all-important atmosphere that allows a horror game to truly get under your skin in a way that jump scares cannot. Despite looking like a student project, the frame rate has a tendency to chug in some areas, and I did experience a crash during my 2-hour playthrough. Sound design keeps the tension up, but does little to stand out from similar games. Daylight is truly embarrassing, as it gormandizes on cliches and tropes, digests, and squeezes them out of its sphincter for Twitch streamers and Let's Play hosts to gobble up. There is absolutely no reason to endure Daylight, even with its short playtime. The decision to make Daylight a procedurally generated experience cuts off its nose to spite its face. Randomizing the design of the levels does so much to negatively impact an already lackluster experience by stripping the atmosphere and character from the game. The hubris required to commit such an atrocious design blunder in order to add replayability to a title that isn't even worth seeing through once is staggering. Everything you can find in Daylight is available in other, more enjoyable games. The uninspired gameplay and fanfiction grade narrative had no place in a world where titles like Amnesia and Outlast exist. If only this game never saw the light of day.